Kelton Hatch and I are already doing the show off air. Having some conversations about certain wildlife and certain predators. Uh, Sometimes the off air conversations are as good as anything on the air. We may get to that a little later in the program, but Kelton is joining us for his monthly visit from Idaho Fish and Game here on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We're at 24 and it's 6 minutes after 9 o'clock. First of all, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me. I
Been
got to get the microphone down here. I moved it out of the way so we could visit.
Yeah, we were having a conversation about predation, and we may get back to that a little later in the show. But in the meantime, well, just because of this time of year with all the seasons going on, it is there's a lot of material to cover here.
Well, there is, and we're still, people may not think it, but we're getting ready to start the next round. I mean, for next year, and this year hasn't ended yet, and so I mean we still have few deer hunts going on up north. We've got elk hunts going on around us, and across the state, we've got trappers out trapping. We've got waterfowlers out chasing ducks and geese, and there's still a lot of seasons going on, and so, and trapping season is underway, like I said earlier, and bobcat season will open on the 15th. And so we've just got a lot of things going on this time of year.
You need some input too, because you put down on a list here, on your list, a toll-free number for people to call.
Yeah, we're having a rough time this year gathering our hunter report cards from folks that have hunted deer, elk, and antelope. If you went out and went hunting this year and have not completed your report card, it's pretty important for us because this determines how many people that bought tags actually went hunting, how many days they went hunting, the units they went hunting in, whether they harvested an animal, and if so, how big the animal was that they harvested. And we take all of that so that we can determine how many hunters are using different game management units, because we get a lot of conflict from folks out there. I mean, we start hearing, well, Unit 48 or Unit 43 or Unit 46 is too crowded. It's got a lot of hunters in there. Well, we don't know that how crowded it is until we see, well, Bill Colley, it looks like he hunted 10 days in Unit 46 and 3 days in Unit 43 and 8 days in Unit 48. And then we take all of those numbers together and we can determine how many man hours or days are spent in each unit, and then way we can start. We're getting more and more pressure. More and more people it seems like are getting out and coming to our area, and that'll help us determine the best way to manage wildlife in the future. So we really need that data. If you can get that in, you can call it, and you don't want to go online, you can just call 877-268 9365, and that's open 24/7. You just need your hunting license or your tag number off your hunting license and that information I talked about.
Well, that's great that people can do that on weekends, or if they're third shifters, they can do it during the overnight.
Yeah, and you can also go to our website at fishandgame.idaho.gov and just click on Hunter Report Card and get her done.
Now, deer and elk counts. I've been talking to a lot of people who've been, and I don't think it had anything to do to my knowledge. This morning there was an accident west of Filer on Route 30, but I do know that stretch out through there, boy, if you're looking to count these animals, just drive.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, it's getting precarious around town. We're getting a lot of city wildlife. Falls. I don't know how many times I've had to stop for a whole herd to cross at Falls, but most of our backcountry roads and stuff right now, I mean, we live kind of out of town and stuff, and the other night we had 6 deer grazing in our yard, and that's typically not what we see out there, but we're starting to see more wildlife. We're not too far off Rock Creek, so it's not surprising. But the counting that we're going to be doing is we're up right now. We're waiting for the fog to clear, Bill. If you would give us a good all you need to do is say, hey, tomorrow it's going to be sunny. It'll be sunny, and we'll be able to fly. As you forecasters keep saying, it's going to be cloudy. It's going to be cloudy. No,
it's been foggy for almost an entire week.
I know it is beautiful out there, though. I like the frost, but what we're doing is we'll be in a helicopter flying. To do comp counts. And what we're doing on the comp counts is we count the number of bucks, does, and fawns so we can determine the overall health of the herd. and then we'll come in later and we're going to do what we do, like in Unit 45. We're going to fly the entirety of Unit 45, about 50 hours. 40 hours we'll be out there, 40 somewhere in that area. It's about $1,000 an hour for us to fly it, but what we're doing is a complete overall population count for that unit this year. And we try to go through each of the units in the Magic Valley every every 5 years, according to how much money we have in the coffers, and we'll be doing all of Unit 45. Like a couple years ago, we did 54 and 55, and so it gives us a good overall number. So if you see a helicopter out there flying around, that's us. We're going to be flying quite a bit this week, actually, if we get some clear weather. I mean, today we're down trapping deer in Unit 55.
Are you collaring deer?
We are. We're radio collaring deer. And this is kind of an interesting deal. People go, oh, why do you radio collar? A lot of things would have been different in the landscape, I believe, if we'd had this radio telemetry or this radio collar data a few years ago. I'm talking about like Highway 86 going down to Tremonton. It was in the 60s, and I know the regional manager was here, and he had commented saying, hey, there's a lot of deer migrating through there. We need to be kind of cautious, but we didn't have the data that we needed to be able to really push anything on that. And because of that road, about 3,000 deer died on the shoulder of it the first year because it really cut off a migration pattern. We're going to be putting about 50 radio collars on deer in Unit 45 this year. We're going to be putting collars on elk. And I was going to tell you a little story about how far do you think an elk travels, Bill?
I'm going to say they got a range of a couple hundred miles.
It's pretty amazing when you think of an elk that's standing in a guy's hayfield up in Fairfield, and it goes and migrates to Arrow Rock Dam over by Boise. And you think of all the little hooey-dooies and the hills and the roads that she has to cross to get over there, and then she'll calve there, and she'll summer out over there, and then she'll migrate back to Fairfield, or then she'll migrate down to Mountain Home for the winter. We've got elk that are migrating from just outside of Fairfield to Altourist, and then we'll turn around and migrate clear back to Mountain Home. And that's an 80-mile straight shot. We've got mule deer that will winter in Arco and have their fawns north of Fairfield. And we'll also have deer that are over in Unit 43 over by Fairfield that'll migrate clear out to Bliss, or will migrate over to Unit 52. And so it really gives us this new data that we're collecting. We've got GPS collars that gives us real-time data. It uploads points however they set the collars up, every 24 hours, every 2 hours, every, 48 hours. It just depends on what they're trying to collect from these different animals. And it really gives us a good scheme of where the animals are migrating to and how they're getting there. And it's pretty critical information, because this way, when we have new projects or new subdivisions or new roads or new airports or whatever's coming in, we can say, well, we've got these animals that are migrating through that area. What can we do to eliminate mortality if we want to maintain the current population of wildlife that we have?
Now, I have a friend, he's a school teacher, and what he did a few years ago, they were just tagging, collaring white-tailed deer.
Uh-huh.
And he did this for his students, and they were stunned just how much of a range they have.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we've been we don't have the GPS technology that we're putting on the pelicans, but they find our pelican wing tags in Mexico and in California. And so, we get some big migrations on those birds, and it kind of shows us, but it just helps us better understand wildlife. And all this technology that's coming out, people go, oh, well, you're just harassing animals. It's pretty critical stuff. It's just like this, when we can take this migration stuff, we can take the fawn survival stuff, we can take the harvest success, it gives us a much better handle on what's going on with wildlife.
Well, you mentioned pelicans, but speaking of birds, some waterfowl hunting.
It is. It's going gangbusters right now. I've been talking to folks that if they can find open water, A lot of the ponds have started to freeze up, and it's really pushed. I know the Snake River is doing a lot better. A lot of field shooting going on. If you can find some folks that are will let you in on their private property and stuff like that. That's one of those things I like doing in the summer, is going around and talking to landowners if you want to do that, because they're getting inundated right now. Everybody in town that drives by and sees a flock of ducks sitting in their field has probably called them or knocking on their doors. So it's really good to kind of GPS those locations this time of year, and then this summer when they're not getting inundated with it, give them a holler or talk to them and see if there's some way you can get in there to hunt. But we've got some good shoots going on right now from the people that I've been talking to, and they're starting to see some of the northern ducks with this colder weather coming in, and so we get a good migration of northern ducks into this area, and people could go out and have a little bit of fun. Have a Christmas goose.
Oh, that would taste good.
Christmas mallard.
Moister than a turkey, we should point
Well, you
out.
can make you a turducken.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good, too.
Yeah.
This morning I was outside about 7:15, and I swear I heard, and I know the shot, from a shotgun, what it sounds like. I swear I heard it, but I was standing here in the barn behind our building, and I swear it came from our back field. Now, the sun wasn't up yet, and it's city limits, number one, it's likely not there, but in this foggy weather, I wonder if I'm hearing something from way off in the distance, but it sounds like it's in the field.
Or somebody snuck down on Rock Creek.
Yeah,
and we've had that happen. And I mean that's if you're hearing shotguns going off this close to the office, that may be something to give us a call about, because we might go down there and check it out, because it could happen. Every once in a while we'll get people that'll get wandering down Rock Creek and not really know that it's a no shooting zone, even though there's nobody around.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wouldn't surprise me at all, Bill.
I heard it, and one of our cats was standing there next to me, and she turned around.
Well, you know what's happened to her then. She's been shot at. But
she caught her attention, but that's the thing, is that sun wasn't up yet.
Well, I'm trying to think what shooting hours would be. It probably wasn't too far off shooting hours at 7.
Yeah.
7, because I'd have to look at my
It was 7:15ish to 7:20 that I heard it.
Yeah, I bet you're inside that shooting hours, because it's typically a half hour before sunrise.
But I have heard some crazy things with echoes in the past, and they can really travel.
It can. With this heavy fog like this, it could carry a ways.
We've got to take a short break, but I do want to mention, if you've got a question, and obviously some people do, questions and comments.
Are we lighting up?
Yes.
Well, good. I like getting calls.
We'll take some of those calls coming up after the break. Right now, though, it's 20 minutes after 9 o'clock. We're at 25, and you're listening to Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Be patient. Kelton is here for the entire hour. Bill Colley with you as well this morning. And just very quickly, you can also email questions to us. I will try to get to those, but we do give preference, obviously, to the telephone calls, being that it's a sound medium. That's on the way in just a few minutes. I want to thank the voice of Kat, who works out in the front office, pitching Miracle Hot Springs. Right now, we feel like we're in a hot spring or a sauna here in the studio. Kelton just commenting about that.
I'm just nervous about the calls.
Yes, somebody that has turned the thermostat up here at the office, but they didn't tell us. It's 9:23. We're at 25. Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game in studio with us. Bill Colley as well on Top Story. News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Question or comment for Kelton. Telephone number 208-736. I was going to get to the 2 3s here, but 208-736-0300. 208-736-0300. And we have a caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air.
Yes. I would like to address the trapping situation of predators, basically. I live on the north side, and we have some coyotes around. They never bother me. I have cows. It's not a problem. Concerning people who set snares on, well, it's on BLM ground, but you're right next to private property. A snare is a non-discriminatory trap. I mean, there's if an animal's in a snare, it's usually dead. A lake hole trap, and I used to trap So a leg hold trap, in my opinion, is just as bad. But couldn't we get a law that says if you are trapping within 100 yards of private property or 200 yards, a half mile, whatever, even though it is BLM ground, it has to be a live trap, so that we would get the non-discriminatory, animals, the household pets that well, when I'm out on my property, my dog will range 200 yards either way of me, just sniffing and prowling through the sagebrush. And if he gets caught in a trap and I'm busy doing something and I don't know it, why, he's dead. And so there should be a setback from private property, or if the person who owns the private property says, yes, you can trap on my place, or even requiring trappers to post that they are trapping if they are next to private property. I'll shoot a coyote if I've got a problem with it. But the non-discriminatory trapping of anything that gets caught in a snare, I don't think that's quite right.
Let's get to Kelton on that.
And I understand your concerns, and I think it's the concerns of a lot of folks. One thing that I teach a lot of trapping classes. I've trapped most of my life. And like on snares, what we teach is to put a snare stop in it, so that if a deer or something gets in it, it's also where placement of these snares. My dogs have been caught in snares and leg holds both. They're leash trained, and so they usually stand there. I've never, on a foothold trap, I've never had anything hurt on them. I mean, it's their foot is swollen up before and things like that when they get pinched once in a while. But I definitely understand your concerns. The easiest thing to be able to address those concerns is we just had a commission meeting here last week, or 4 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And if you want something like this to move forward, the easiest way to do is address our commission. They're the ones who set these determinations. We're working on trapping stuff right now. We're actually in the upland game and fur bearing season regulation setting right now. And so if you go to fishandgame.idaho.gov, you can click on there and you can put your comments in there and get those rolling in the system that way. But the easiest thing that I would do is come with a well manufactured presentation. You get 3 minutes, and then address the commission on your concerns. It's a concern for all of us, because that's what I'm teaching these trappers. Everybody that's a new trapper since 2002. We made a lot more trappers once we started wolf trapping, and we've had more issues, and so now we're making it mandatory that anybody that got a trapping license after 2002 has to go to a mandatory trapper education. And we address a lot of these concerns, not using 330 conibears above ground, or especially near where there's walking paths or other animals may frequent. If you do, we suggest putting up a sign that traps are in use in this area, just so people don't let their dogs off leash. And those are meant for out on farms and ranches and stuff like that. Not in like down in Rock Creek or something. But we really do address the ethical issues as well as the bycatch, not targeting exactly what you're after. And so, no, I understand your concerns, and I think it's a concern of a lot of people. And so I appreciate the call.
Got about a minute and a half before the break. We'll squeeze in one last caller during this segment, then we're going to get back to our agenda in a couple of minutes. 928, caller, you've got to make it quick. You're on the air. Well, okay, caller made it very quick. Well, we've got about a minute then. What we'll do is you have a note here about bear applications.
Bear applications, before I'm on here again, black bear, we have one controlled unit or 2 controlled units over in eastern Idaho or western Idaho. That starts on January 15th. That's what I was talking about off here. It's starting to come around again because we start black bear applications in January, turkey applications in February, bighorn sheep in April, and then we're back to May and we're doing deer, elk, and antelope. And so It's just a year-round event.
Yeah. It's like the big outdoor playground that is Idaho.
Yes, it is.
We've got a short break coming up in just a couple of minutes. More of your questions or comments for Kelton following the break. Telephone number would be I keep getting this 3 in my head today. My lucky number, I suppose. 208-736-0300. 208-736-0300. There's an old Star Trek episode where Data remembers the number 3 and he saves the ship through a time warp. But I know there's a lot more complex
I don't know that
explanation
you're going
there.
to save the ship with
Yes.
here.
We've got more on the way in just a few minutes on KLIX. 9:33, and our studio guest, Kelton Hatch, is joining us from Idaho Fish and Game. We're at 24. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, newsradio1310.com. We've got a caller who's been very patient trying to get in touch with us since the last segment. And what we'll do is we'll go directly back to the telephones, the number 208-736-0300. Caller, you're on the air.
Well, Fish and Game, you guys had a interesting year this year. I mean, we had the Highway 20 North plan sprung on us, massive road closures up here in Blaine County, and basically, miles and miles and miles of new bike paths, mountain bikers with screaming dogs going to be chasing our wild game around. Then we get the wilderness plan of the new wilderness regulations, controlled horses, where you can ride, it's just amazing. I mean, it's just, we get the plans a year after the wilderness goes in. And the Idaho Conservation League's out there all summer taking down the meat poles that people have hung their game from, pulling out the campfire rings, and that's not the worst of it. Then we get the dark skies ordinance going to turn over central Idaho to the United Nations. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, do you guys just ever have days you just wonder?
Well, yeah. It's been pretty hectic. That the Blaine County deal has got us really concerned because some of those bike trails went through calving, elk calving areas, and there's some concern. And that's about all I can really comment on it right now, though.
I'll add this.
I appreciate your concern.
The cyclists who claim that they love the outdoors and nature.
And they are mostly a pretty low impact deal. But I don't know. You've got to be able to draw lines in the sand sometimes on how far to push different things and how far to, I understand his frustration with some of these horse areas because I had never seen anything like that until I got up there and I went in for a mountain goat, and come to find out, they had, you couldn't take horses in there. And I'm sitting here going, it was in a wilderness, and I was just really shocked that you couldn't get your horses. So, I mean, fortunately, I was in good enough shape that I could walk the 10 miles in. But, there's some things that we need to hopefully spread some of the wealth for everybody.
If your office has some old parachutes left from the Beaver program 60 years ago, you could go in that way.
Yeah, I'm not jumping out. I'm not jumping out of a perfectly good plane. I'm sorry. If it's going down and there's lots of sirens going off saying I'm crashing, I'll jump then. But before that, I'll take my chances with the plane.
Got another toll-free number you wanted to pass along this morning.
I did. We've had some issues. On our trapping, we have trapping and hunting quotas for mountain lions. There's no trapping for them, but there's a quota, so you can harvest X amount of females out of given units or given groups of units. And then we also have a quota of otters that can be harvested in the entirety of the Magic Valley. Typically, people that were participating in these sports could go onto our website and say, oh, this unit's still open, this unit's still. They've had some major breakdowns with that computer site, and so they're updating it currently on the telephone. And so if you could go to 800-323-4334, and you can get updated quota harvest take before you head out. That way you'll be above board, because it's the responsibility of the sportsman before they go out there and go hunting in certain areas to make sure that there's still quotas available and the season's still open, as well as harvesting otter. And if you harvest an otter and it's close season, you can bring it into the office and turn it in.
And I wanted to mention, we've got about a minute before the break, so I'm going to jump down the list just a bit.
Yeah.
You have a note on Christmas presents.
Well, let me do what I'm going to jump to that. And there's no wolf quota this year. We had wolf quotas before, but there's no wolf quotas now. That's just a regular season. Christmas presents, great one. If you're struggling right now to find that significant other something, buy them a fishing license, buy them a hunting license. It's a gift that gives 365 days. What else can you spend $30 that you can use 365 days a year? I mean, really, Bill, what can you do? Can I go to a movie? No, that's one movie night. And so it's a good deal. You don't have to buy them from Fish and Game. Go to one of our local license vendors. You can buy a gift card at that local license vendor so that you can get it for. It's kind of I always figure it's a cop-out gift but it's a good gift. My mother gave me one forever, my Sportsman's package, and it was the best gift that I could have because I was going to buy it, and it fit. I didn't have to take it back. And so it works really good. And then you've got the Super Tag applications and all the other things you can buy gift certificates for.
Wanted to mention the website would be a great place to see those things.
You bet. You can go to fishandgame.idaho.gov or stop by the regional office and pick up the gift certificates and things like that, or go to one of our local sporting goods vendors.
We've got more coming up with Kelton Hatch. We're about 20 minutes away from 10 o'clock, 25 right now, on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Kelton Hatch joining us in studio on Top Story this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We're at 26. It's 9:42. Telephone number 208-736-0300. And directly out of the break, we have another caller joining us. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air. Seems we're losing that one caller a lot today. It must be he's running out of quarters.
That's it.
You're up next. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, great program, as usual. I have a question for Kelton. On the tracking collars that you use, is that the same basic technology as the inReach and the spot technology? Where you have two satellites, one's receiving the signal and the other one you send it up?
Pretty much. This is a self-contained unit that we put on the elk. It's probably weighs right close to a pound, and it's a 2 by 3 size collar. Yeah, and it just sends a tone to the satellite, and we're linked into the satellites with our computers, and it sends that to our computers, and we've got real-time data on where these animals are. And no, we do not use them if we draw a tag in that area. That's the thing that, people sometimes, but no, we're very critical of that with the staff and stuff. And we're radio coloring cows and mostly and stuff. So, but it does give us very, very good data on how to manage wildlife. We're actually in the process of trying to get some on cow elk in the Fairfield area, and we're trying, we've got a graduate student that's working on his master's thesis on different ways to haze wildlife from crops in order to help us cut down on our depredation claims. If we can come up with, this is the best way to scare an elk off, and she doesn't come back, that way we can use it for all the other farms and stuff like that. And so they're trying a bunch of different techniques on that. So it's pretty cool. This data has given us information that you think you know a lot about wildlife until all of a sudden you get a GPS collar on them and go, man, I am dumber than a box of rocks.
Yeah,
I had no idea they did that. And so it's pretty cool.
Well, thank you for the call. And next caller, you're joining us on KLIX. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, Kelton, I got a question for you on this. Like the landowner permits and stuff like that, these appreciation tags I've been hearing about. I got a huge problem with the fact that the landowners can sell those tags and profit off of them. I understand because, animals been in their fields eating their stuff, but like up in Unit 45, some of those ranchers are making a fortune on those tags.
Yeah.
And pardon me.
No, go on.
No, I just wonder if you could address that, because if say it like that goat tag you said you drew, and if you needed a few $1,000s, if he can sell a tag up to 45 for deer and elk, why couldn't you sell that goat tag? I mean, if it's good for one, it's got to be good for all. And I got a big problem with it. I mean, I'm going to jump off and listen.
Again, I appreciate your call, and that's one of those decisions that's a couple levels above me. It's one of these dilemmas that we're really working on, because we have to. I mean, we don't have to. I mean, I believe that the landowner is entitled to be able to get some. I'm glad we have the LAP system in order to be able to pay landowners back for the hundreds of hours and feed that they donate, basically for Idaho's wildlife that we all get a hunt. There's a lot of concern about this right now, what you're talking about, and about the only thing that I can say is I hate to skate this direction again, but I would really make my concerns heard to your commission. The commissioners are the ones that can set these rules, and they're more in the governing body, and talk to your legislators on things like this. I like the LAP program in the fact that it does pay landowners back for the use, and I understand the concerns that people have when some of these tags are sold. And the tags are a totally different thing, because like the tag I draw is drawn just to me, and they're given, in some cases, there's two different sets of tags that they can get, and I can't remember the name of both of them. And one of them is just blanks that they can give out to people to help haze animals off their property. Typically, the department has a few of those to give out on some of these depredation things. And so, but the easiest thing to do is just talk to your commissioner, talk to your local legislator.
Next caller, you're on the air with Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game at 947 on Top Story.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to ask a question. I guess I'm the opposite of the whole planet here. What is the point and purpose of, or the reason for killing mountain sheep, mountain goats? Just to blast them and get the trophy and stuff them and put them on your wall?
No, not necessarily. I think everybody's got a different reason for hunting, whether it's a deal that we've done since we was little kids, or with family. And I understand different people have different views on it. We use hunting in Idaho to manage wildlife, and you've got X amount of habitat, and you've got X amount, and since Idaho is pushing close to 2 million people, plus more and more visitors every year, that habitat for those wildlife are shrinking. And so with the use of harvest, especially on mule deer, you can maintain stronger, healthier herds. We could turn it back to nature and just let things run askew. I mean, just try to run naturally, but you'd have a lot more high mortality on roadways and migrations, and then you'd have massive die-offs. And with hunting, we can kind of keep deer and elk and goat and sheep and all these other populations in a manageable, healthy herd situation in check, so that we're really not overpopulated or underpopulated in them. Hunting is basically what saved Idaho's wildlife in the first place. When people first moved out here, we had a lot of commercial hunting. And I know places in the Midwest that people had never. I had a guy that worked in my office that when he was a kid, he grew up in North Dakota, and he had never seen a deer in his entire life until he was like 30 years old. And it's because managed hunting came back in, or controlled hunts had came back in, and now they've got lots of deer. And so, I understand your concern, and I know a lot of people love looking at wildlife, and I love looking at it too. I just, along with a lot of other people, this it's just one of those. People have different thoughts on different things, I guess. I don't know. I'm sure I didn't satisfy your answer, but hopefully I kind of came close.
We have about 10 minutes to go, and I want to thank the callers. We've got a couple of things still to touch on. Ice fishing. the weather is finally contributing to that, or at least helping out a bit.
It is, and a bunch of the lakes up in the Fairfield and Wood River Valley right now are pushing about 4 to 5 inches of ice. So if you're braver than I am, that is thick enough, they say. I like a foot, but I'm kind of a cowardly lion when it comes to walking on ice. But I know that there's a lot of people that have been up fishing. Please, before you go out, check the ice thickness. I always like to. One other thing I forgot to talk about was on waterfowl hunters. Please, when you're out there, don't overload your boats. Every year we have people falling into the drink because they get 2 or 3 inches of freeboard because they've got to get that last dog in or that last, bag of decoys, and they get overloaded and motor power's out or something, and something goes in. So check the ice. Water rescues or going swimming this time of year is just not that fun. So be careful.
When my daughter was a baby and I saw some friends out ice fishing one day, it had been a really bitter cold winter. We had about 18 inches of ice on the lake, and so I pushed the stroller out on the lake to go say hello to them. And then coming back, I had some people chew me out. But I pointed out that 18 inches of ice was likely stronger than the floor that they would walk on at home. You get to a certain thickness, that ice isn't going anywhere.
As long as you don't hit a warm spot.
Yeah.
Or a spring. Or
current underneath it, you might have some issues.
And so, but no, you're right.
Speaking of fishing, you've got a note here about a Hayburn man who's involved apparently with some project.
And I love stories like this. This gentleman saw a problem, and he changed it. And his name is Richard Kicklighter, and he's from Burley area, and he loved to fish. But there wasn't a place, and we've really battled with a fishing area over in the Burley Rupert area for youth and for older people, or just for people to go out quick, other than in the Snake River. And we'd stocked fish in Freedom Park Pond. If you don't know where that's at, it's over by the airport going towards Hayburn. And the cormorants and pelicans would clean the fish out as quick as we could get them, or they'd go underneath this big weed mat, and then nobody could catch them. And so this gentleman talked to us, and we gave a very little bit of help with this. We basically gave some, because I don't want you thinking this was our project at all. But he came in, he talked to us on what he could do to make this pond better. He got a bunch of volunteers, he got a bunch of donations, and he's made the pond wider and deeper and cleaned it up in order, and we're bringing the fish over next year, and we're going to be stocking this pond, and hopefully it's going to be a success. And I think it's just cool that we've got somebody that just wanted to do something. It's not to grease his own pocket. It's just to do something nice for the community and give something back. And I really want to give a shout out to Richard Kicklighter. When I think of Men of the Year, it's people that do this type of stuff, that are doing the small things for the betterment. And not everybody. I know there's tons of people. I love the Magic Valley because we've got a lot of big hearts around here, and people do a lot of things for other people that go unnoticed. But if we have a program that if people are doing good things for the community, we try to give them to highlight them, and this is pretty cool. This is a pretty cool thing.
We've got a caller with us. And caller, you're up next. You're on News Radio 1310 KLIX. Go ahead.
All right. Hey, I appreciate it. And Kelton, I appreciate you coming on. I look forward to just the forum and your willingness to answer questions. I've got a question that I have heard many times and heard in other states is successfully implemented, and that is the seniority kind of merit system. And so I think you probably understand what I'm talking about, but I'm wondering if I do go and write a letter to the commissioners or talk to my local either senator or House member in the state House, what would be a compelling argument in your mind, even though I don't know if you're for it or not, but what would be a compelling argument in your mind to be able to persuade someone to say, okay, a lot of us wait a long time, for tags, and eventually we might get one, eventually maybe not, but at least we know that, hey, if we keep trying, that eventually the odds will be more in our favor than just if we throw our hat into the ring separately every time.
And I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's one of those things that is on our radar. I think since I've been in the department, I've looked or we've scoped systems to increase people's drawing odds that put in a lot. Most other states have a point system to do that. And the legislature, I promise you, is very well aware of this, as well as our commissioners. I think what you're going to end up seeing, sir, on this is I think it's just going to have to be when you see a turn of the tables. Currently, we've got overwhelming support for not putting in a point system. However, I am starting to see more momentum moving towards maybe doing differently our regulations, as in, putting some of these trophy deer tags and trophy bull tags. I mean, they're truly trophy. I mean, when you look at Unit 45, it's got worse drawing odds than any bighorn sheep. It's 1 in 60, I think, this last year. Unit 54 down here, just for a buck, and just right outside of town, went to 1 in 8. And I really see that issue for a lot of people, because it's easier to draw a $1 million Powerball sometimes, you figure, than drawing a deer tag or an elk tag or these other tags. And so I think you might start seeing some shift. One thing, you may have heard me say this before, if you could go to YouTube and look up Idaho point system. We've got 3 YouTube videos on there. That's probably where I would start, is watching those. Regan Berkeley, a former biologist from this area, she's a manager over in McCall now, put these together, and she had done the math on the different types of drawing system, whether it's to, put in once, you can only draw a bull once every 3 or 5 years, or you can, a whole bunch of different varieties. Come up with the one that you feel would suit your purpose the best. Get some support and address the commission and send letters to your senators. And I think the way things happen like that is when things are really thought out and people get enough momentum behind them to change the tide. And so I know it's not fun. It's a lot of work, but I do appreciate your call, and I appreciate hunters like yourself that, that are dedicated. It's kind of interesting. I'm rambling on this a little bit, but it's kind of interesting. I was going to tell you, Bill, hunters are so dedicated. When we sell hunting licenses, 95% of our hunters buy a hunting license every year, where our fishermen are, maybe I'll fish this year. Our average fisherman only buys fishing license. Don't get me wrong, fishermen. There's some of you that are hardcore, buy one every year. I know that, but we lose about 3 to 4 out of every 5 fishermen only buy a license once a year. It's amazing. Hunters are pretty true blue. If you're a hunter, you're a hunter.
That's good. They grew up doing it, and it's carrying on a family tradition.
You bet.
I want to thank Kelton Hatch. We'll see you again in January.
Yeah, I just have to say, John, you need to get out and check your trap line. So he's got a trap line for mice in my wife's office. So I thought he's a long-time listener, so I had to throw that out there.
Got a couple of guys coming in tomorrow. I've had somebody tell me that the 2 favorite segments of this program are Kelton on Thursdays and the Gun Guys on Fridays. They'll be joining us tomorrow after 9 o'clock news. We're at 25. Rush Limbaugh's program following Fox News on News Radio 1310 KLIX, newsradio1310.com. God willing, if the creek don't rise, I'll be back between 8 and 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Have a Merry Christmas.